This video is sponsored by Star Trek Fleet Command. If Disney were a ship, then up until recently it would have been considered unsinkable, like a certain ocean liner of some repute was marketed as being back in the day. Both Disney and Hollywood at large got so used to every Disney movie either crossing or coming close to the billion-dollar threshold that they assumed Disney could begin infusing ideopolitical messaging into their content, and it wouldn't matter, because audiences were so enamored with all of Disney's brands that they would loyally keep showing up to the latest Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, or Disney animated fare, no matter what was done to them. That's when Disney started hitting one iceberg after the other, which didn't seem so bad at the time, but now the damage can no longer be ignored, and everyone can see that, like the Titanic, Disney is floundering. Theatrically, 2023 has been the worst year in Disney's history. Hollywood is reeling from wish flopping, which came hot on the heels of the catastrophic failure of the Marvels, which by the time the dust has settled, may end up becoming the single greatest flop in Hollywood history. In this editorial, we'll begin with a look at how the entertainment media complex, Disney's biggest cheerleaders as they were speeding towards the icebergs, are dealing with the subsequent floundering, before continuing with the most recent reports on how Marvel and Lucasfilm respectively are dealing with all of this, and finally, the rumors that Kevin Feige himself may be considering to abandon ship. We'll get back to the reasons why, but the end result is nonetheless that the audience is abandoning all of Disney's brands, even the ones that Disney are only peripherally involved with, like DoctorWho, a franchise which, as I understand from Nerdrotic's most recent video, found a way to inflict even more damage upon itself than it already had done. No wonder so many increasingly find their entertainment elsewhere, like in manga or in gaming, which brings us neatly to the sponsor of this video. Star Trek Fleet Command is a free-to-play open-world MMO game available on both desktop and mobile, where you can explore a vast space landscape from the Alpha to the Omega Quadrant in stunning graphics. As a star-based commander on the edge of civilized space, you can recruit your own favorite Star Trek characters, including the classic Kirk, Spock, Picard, and Data among others. And you can build and crew your ship from over 50 years of Star Trek history, all with immersive details for extra nostalgia like replicators and transporters, adding depth to the experience. The game has a massive, thriving community, so you can engage players all around the world in battles testing your strategic ability, or choose your own path as you boldly go where no one has gone before. The story offers a fresh narrative experience with alternate dimensions and storylines to explore. Whether you love Star Trek, or if you just want to explore an awesome game, Star Trek Fleet Command is the game for you, and the time to try it is right now, as the game is celebrating its 5-year anniversary with a ton of birthday activities, culminating on November 28th. Download Star Trek Fleet Command now using either the QR code on screen or our link in the description. And for you new players, we've got an extra little gift for you, namely the promo code WARPSPEED. That gives you a new player content pack for free, which grants you 10 epic shards of Kirk. To claim it, simply download the game using our link, and once in the game, certainly before you reach level 10, go to your player profile, open settings, choose General and scroll down to sign up for your Scopely account. Then go to the official website StarTrekFleetCommand.com and click the store icon to log in with your newly created Scopely account. Once in the store, access promo codes on the left hand of the menu. Go to promo codes and enter the code WARPSPEED and Energize to redeem your rewards, which will be waiting for you once you return to the game. So, download Star Trek Fleet Command now and immerse yourself in the Star Trek universe with in-game contests, experiences, and giveaways. Become the leaders or members of a mighty alliance, all by using our QR code or the link in the description. With that, let's move on to the reactions to Disney's Wish. Let's begin with Screen Rant, a publication with a history of attacking fans critical of what Disney has been doing, and which most recently thought that the Marvels was delightfully fun and a much needed return to form for the MCU. Maybe they learned from that screw-up, because they only thought Wish was charming. So how are they going to rationalize away its epochal failure? Well, let's see. Excusing their own failure to predict how badly this was going to do, they even bolded the excuse. Many believed the movie would perform well during its opening weekend in theaters, especially since it premiered during a holiday week. Instead, Wish was a massive disappointment. Yeah, we could have told you that. In fact, we did. The reality, of course, is that there was no scenario under which Wish was ever going to be anything other than a disappointment. And the only ones who ever thought this was going to perform well were completely out of touch with both the audience and reality. Alas, many of the writers of publications like Screen Rant, among many others, are just that. So, let's see them try to explain what happened here. After going through Disney's recent history of flops, Screen Rant writes, "Sadly, Wish had many things going against it heading into its premiere week and opening weekend. For starters, Disney has been awful at marketing its new releases as of late, so it's very likely that many didn't know a movie was coming out during the Thanksgiving holiday. So they're blaming marketing, implied defense being that the audience would have flocked to the movie if they knew it was there. Then they blame the negative reviews, and even bolden. Numerous critics claimed the movie repeated Disney's classic storytelling formula, resulting in a predictable and boring tale. Pray tell, which numerous critics would this be? Because I can tell you, those numerous critics never saw the movie. If they did, they would have known that this movie did not repeat Disney's storytelling formula. If it had, more audiences would no doubt have gone to see it. Instead, the movie is about a king who has made a really nice, safe and prosperous land for his citizens. But he is a bit on the arrogant side, so this one chick, who has no love interest and who needs no man, decides that the king needed to do better, and now he needs to be deposed in a revolution. This is not a repeat of Disney's classic storytelling formula. Next, they blame COVID, and they blame Disney+. But they of course don't blame the deviation from Disney's classic formula, which really hasn't been used for several years now. Let's see if the traits can do any better. Variety has a fairly grounded take on the situation in their piece Disney's Bleak Box Office Streak. Wish is the latest crack in the studio's once invincible armor. They write, Wish misfired in its opening weekend, extending Disney's bleak box office fortunes. Instead of recapturing the studio's magic, Wish joins a long list of its underperforming 2023 tentpoles such as The Marvels, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, The Haunted Mansion, and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. This summer's The Little Mermaid didn't completely flounder with 569 million worldwide. That means it did flounder, just not completely and totally. Still lost the studio a fortune. About Elementals, they said, Pixar hasn't restored its former glory after audiences were trained to watch on Disney+. For the record, Elementals lost money too, and lots of it. But note the excuse they give though. Audiences have been trained to see these movies on Disney+, like good doggies. That's how Disney's failures are being rationalized away. Audiences will see them all on Disney+. Except, and this is the part they don't tell you, when these movies eventually are released on Disney+, the ratings tend to demonstrate that they aren't really seen much there either, because that's the harsh reality of the situation. Most audiences don't see these movies in theaters, and when they do come out on Disney+, they don't see them there either. The majority of the audience that used to turn most of Disney's movies into billion-dollar hits just a few years ago have simply decided against seeing these new Disney movies, period. There was one notable exception though. They write, Disney's only unmitigated success in 2023 has been Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which opened in May and generated a healthy $845 million globally. And even then, analysts expected the epic conclusion to James Gunn's trilogy about intergalactic misfits to get closer to 1 billion. In other words, and as both ourselves and our friends like Valiant Renegade and WDW Pro have been saying, the only Disney movie that wasn't a complete disaster this year was James Gunn's final Guardians of the Galaxy, but even that was a disappointment. Still, no addressing the real culprit behind Disney's woes, and that's a big problem. So far in this video, we've looked at both an industry trade and a more commercial entertainment publication in the guise of Screen Rant, yet none of them are willing to state the true cause behind Disney's problems, namely that they went full-on activist, and they lost the audience because of it. Disney Plus and the other commonly stated excuses are factors too, but they pale in their insignificance to the main overriding problem that Disney, to use a colloquial term, went woke, and now they're in the process of going broke. It will be difficult to fix the problem when no one in the establishment media complex even have the courage to point it out. Later on in their article, Variety looks towards the future and make an observation that does not speak highly of Disney's own in-house talent, and I use the term lightly. In an interesting turn, Disney's most promising titles may hail from 20th century studios. When the studio first inherited Fox's film assets in 2019, it was forced to jettison a series of duds, like X-Men spin-off Dark Phoenix, which is likely to outperform both the Marvels and Wish by the time all is said and done. But Deadpool 3, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and whatever Avatar sequels that James Cameron brings to life, looks to be among the most reliable properties for Disney. Introducing X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and other characters under the 20th century arsenal could help the Marvel Cinematic Universe as well. Well, they could, but they won't if they're brought to life on screen in the same way as everything else Marvel has been doing since the onset of Phase 4. So, is Marvel doing the required changes going forward? To get that out of the way first, Lucasfilm aren't doing anything, as we recently saw. In hiring Dave Filoni, they even doubled down. So the big question here is Marvel. What will they do? Well, we have already covered how director Daniel Dustin Cretton is no longer directing Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. Combine that with the reports that Jeff Loveness has been let go as well, reportedly because Marvel are moving away from Kang, and that looks a lot like they are pivoting. Not only did they, allegedly, get rid of a character that hasn't worked, they got rid of one of the Rick and Morty writers that really haven't done them any favors. Also, this leaves Marvel with one scheduled Avengers movie without a writer and director, which presents them with a great opportunity to course correct. Alas, we just learned which writer they've attached to it instead, namely their primary Rick and Morty writer, Michael Waldron. He's the writer of not just Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, one of the worst icebergs the MCU ever struck. He was also the main writer of Loki Season 1, the series where a third of the audience did not return for Season 2. At this point, the Kang Dynasty is most likely but a placeholder title, but what has me worried is that when presented with this opportunity to course correct, instead of hiring some new blood to get them out of their current rut, they doubled down on one of their worst writers who got them into that rut in the first place. That tells me that the real problem here remains Kevin Feige. He simply may not be capable of fixing the problem he himself created. But how long will he be staying? On November 28th, Small Screen published the story Kevin Feige could leave Marvel due to behind-the-scenes issues. They write, in a startling development that could shake the foundations of the MCU, Kevin Feige, the mastermind behind Marvel Studios' unprecedented success, is reportedly considering an exit. Okay, so Small Screen are evidently not caught up to the reality of Feige's contributions to the MCU, but let's leave that for the moment and continue. This news comes amidst growing concerns about behind-the-scenes challenges and the future direction of the studio. And what's the source of this claim? Small Screen continues. in a recent episode of Matthew Baloney's The Town podcast. Baloney is the former editor of the industry trade The Hollywood Reporter, so he knows his stuff. Joanna Robinson shed light on the future of Kevin Feige at Marvel Studios. Robinson, who co-wrote the book MCU: The Reign of Marvel Studios, discussed how Feige, the driving force behind the MCU's success, again, he's no such thing, but moving on, might be nearing the end of his journey with the studio. She pointed out that Feige has been stretched to his limits in recent years, leading him to consider a change as Marvel movies begin to see a dip in box office performance. That's interesting. So now, when he's ran the MCU into the ground, Kevin Feige is thinking of abandoning ship. Disney as a whole may have some striking parallels to the Titanic, but looking at Marvel Studios in isolation, it's starting to look a little bit more like the Costa Concordia. That would be the Italian cruise liner where the captain, Francesco Schettino, decided to abandon the tried and true course that had been set out for him, in favor of taking a far riskier course, really close to land where no Titanic-sized vessel has any business going, in order to impress a woman, and then he ended up crashing a multi-billion-dollar endeavor straight into the rocks. Oh, and then he abandoned ship, leaving the passengers to fend for themselves. Kevin Feige is starting to look an awful lot like Schettino right about now. Of course, Kevin Feige leaving might not be that bad of a thing, because as we have covered in detail before, and as you've heard me allude to several times now, Kevin Feige was never the mastermind behind the MCU, but he is the architect of its destruction. But then, who would Bob Iger appoint instead? Because Bob Iger is the captain that crushed the proverbial Titanic into one iceberg after the other. What do you make of Disney's chances to course correct? Let me know in the comments, and before you go, remember to download Star Trek Fleet Command now using either the QR code on screen or our link in the description.